How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Down to Earth with me, Kristian Harloff, our Monday through Friday UAP news channel where we try to tell you the things that are going on in the world of phenomenon. And there's a lot. There's a lot right now. And so many different stories. We try to pick one that we think is going to be something you guys are going to be interested in, something that people should know about, something that the mainstream media clearly is not picking up, and we discuss it. And we do that Monday through Friday. So if you want to be part of that conversation, you want to help us out by spreading the word, you subscribe to the channel. We are getting close to 30,000 subscribers, but we need you to hit the button. And we do a full-on podcast here on Tuesdays called UAP Tuesdays. But today, what are we going to talk about? Well, I've mentioned this before, and you saw obviously from the thumbnail. In 2023, when all the hearings were happening, well, the hearing happened with David Grush, Fravor, Graves, and there was a big push. And then there was a Mexican hearing, and Graves was at that one as well. But one of the big controversial moments that happened at that hearing was that Jamie Moussan put forward these bodies, the NASCA mummies is what they were calling them. And he said, these are bodies. We can't really tell you we don't know what they are. He's convinced they're otherworldly. And then there was kind of a major pushback on that it wasn't real, that there started, these memes came out, the cake bodies and all this other stuff. And throughout the year, there's been more study on these things. And no one is proclaiming that they are indeed ET or NHI rather, or ET. But more and more people who are studying this are saying they're legit bodies. They're not mummies. They have parts in them they're very old, very ancient. And then even we covered it on this show not too long ago that Gary Nolan said the data is pretty interesting, and more people are starting to take it more serious, it seems, of whatever these things are, even if it's another species that we are discovering, that lived on the earth however many years ago, which is certainly another possibility to say, you never know. But there's so much that is involved in this story, and it's ongoing saga. I mean, recently, apparently, Tim Burchett is going to meet with Moussan. So that means that Washington's taking it serious, right? So I'm not going to pretend to tell you that I know this subject in and out. I will also freely admit that for a very long time, I wasn't taking it serious. I said, I don't know. I'm kind of going, whether this is a fault of mine or just waiting to hear more facts. I said, I just don't know how much of it I believe. I said, I want to see what the science says. But someone who's been paying attention to it since the beginning has been Pavel. So if you watch this show, you know Pavel, and if you don't watch the show, Pavel is a regular contributor on this channel, and he has been following this. So when he and I were going back and forth today, the subject matter that I was gonna do, I started looking at some of these breakdowns of what has been going on. So I thought the best thing is to speak with Pavel and get his breakdown of what's been going on over the last few weeks. So let me bring him in. Here's Pavel. Pavel, how's it going, man?
Hello, Kristian. How are you?
Good,
how's
man.
It been?
So what's the latest? What's the greatest? What's happening here? What did I get right? What did I get wrong? What say you?
No, I think that a result of this disinterest in the topic from you is generalized in the English-speaking community because of all the press that this case has gotten and all the disinformation and misinformation coming from the Peruvian Ministry of Culture, who are filled with archaeologists and other type of scientists that study the places, ancient civilizations history. And I think that they have a status quo that they maybe don't want to break,
Yeah.
And because a lot of scientists that are Mexican and Peruvian already did all of these studies in the past, back in 2017. But then along came hit pieces, hit documentaries, um, bodies that were constructed. They don't know where those bodies came from, but they're like constructed dolls. And inside the site itself, there are constructed bodies, yes, but they are next to other bodies that are not constructed, that are real. That a lot of the scientists, including Dr. John McDowell, who's a forensic scientist, he's an award-winning forensic scientist in America. He says that these bodies need more investigation and that he believes that they lived once, and the fact that also Dr. Nolan is already paying a little bit of attention, and now Burchett, I think this topic is slowly moving forward towards the truth. I don't really have a horse in the race, to be honest with you. I just think the bodies are interesting and that need to be studied.
Right. And because a lot of the time, well, the beginning of it, it was very similar to just this topic in general, right? To where
Yeah.
you say, oh, alien bodies or bodies in general. Come on, they're trying to do everything over there. Just trying to this hearing was out there, and here's a guy who's been known in the past to whether he's brought in fake thing. What was that story? Tell me, because with Jaime Moussan, and is it Jaime Moussan or Jamie Moussan? I always get it wrong.
Jaime.
Jaime. Yeah. So that's right. Okay, Jaime Moussan. So Jaime Moussan for a long time was. He had presented bodies in the past that turned out to be bunk. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it's cases that have been stained, yes, and they have been declared as hoaxes by multiple media.
Right,
that is true.
So then you can understand that when he brings these up again in front of this hearing last year, then people go, "This guy again." I mean, come on. So. Yeah. And it is why a lot of people are kind of tweeting out that maybe people are going to owe him an apology. There's stuff that now Tim Burchett wants to meet with him. What's that all about? Tell me about the Tim Burchett meeting. What's
going on last there? Sunday, they were responding to a presentation at Roswell Festival from Professor Stephen Brown, who I interviewed on Psicoactivo. He's a philosophy professor at Ohio State University. And he has a very viral presentation on the mummies that was very pro mummies, pro. But then 2 days after my interview, he apparently did a 180. He started supporting the llama skull hypothesis, which is a paper that came out back in the day when this all started from a Mexican biologist. And during an interview that I did with this Mexican biologist, he explained to me that when he wanted to publish the paper, no publication would allow him to publish it as is. They wanted him to take a more skeptical approach to it, so it can be deemed as bunk from the beginning. And that's what he did. And I asked him, why did he do it? And he was like, I just wanted to bring more eyes to the case because I think it deserves to be investigated.
Yeah.
And from that moment forward, Professor Brown's second presentation at Roswell Festival was even more leaning towards the llama skull hypothesis. And when Moussan was responding to this, apparently debunking of the case, he slipped out that Burchett was meeting with him. And he also insinuated that Dr. Gary Nolan was going to meet with him, because I know from inside sources that Mr. Moussan has a home in Tennessee. And he goes there every July and August just to clear his head and stuff and do other stuff like this, because Burchett is in Tennessee. So that's how that came about.
That makes sense. And so they want to have a conversation, and they probably, where does it go though? Like, does it line up? Because as we talk about on this channel all the time, as you and I talk about offline, we talk about the hearings. When are these hearings going to happen, right? So is the next hearing going to happen in August? Is it going to happen in 2025 in general? But it seems like a lot of things kind of line up. Is there a world where Burchett is talking to Jaime Moussan about these particular things, that there's more investigation that Nolan helps out with, that they add it into their presentation, wherever that might be? Because the one side of it is they're going to add the things that made that Mexican hearing almost like, laughed at. But the counter to that is, yeah, but what they're going to do is bring legitimacy to that Mexican hearing, and they're going to bring more legitimacy to this when they say, no, we've had people looking at it, and this is what we determine these things are.
Yeah, the thing is that, for example, what Professor Brown did, he says that he gathered his own team of scientists and that he got access to real samples from real bodies. And the people who claim that the only bodies that are determined to be real are in one place, which is Ica University in Peru. And when people asked Professor Brown where he got those samples from or who the scientists are, he refuses to be transparent about it. And I think that's a problem. I think that's the main reason why this case has been so murky over the years, because it is not being done in front of everybody. If it's such an important case, I think everybody needs to be transparent about it. And where it goes, I know that Mr. Moussan, his ultimate goal is to take the bodies to Congress in the US. He said it multiple times. He's trying to do it, as you can see.
Yeah.
But the thing is that I believe we need like official confirmation from peer-reviewed papers first after they come out. I know there are 4 universities currently doing DNA tests, 2 in the US, 1 in the UK, and another one in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as those come out, two months from now or something like that, we're going to know a lot of truth. That's
Who's got them right now, the bodies?
There are bodies at Ica University, which are the big ones.
Yeah.
There are the bodies that Moussan has in Mexico. He doesn't have it. There's an institution they used to bring them to Mexico. But I was just clarified in an interview I did yesterday that they didn't pay anything from their own pocket. They used that institution who takes care of ancient artifacts and all that stuff, because the Peruvian government was refusing to do the same studies.
What was that whole thing when there was like someone disrupted the presentation that they had? And
that was the second presentation. The Ministry of Culture, filled with archaeologists and all that, they disrupted the second presentation of the year in Peru. But Moussan and all the people involved in this, the scientists, kept going to the Ministry of Culture to ask them to please investigate these bodies. And they started with a narrative that they are constructed dolls and constructed bodies. And given that they were using that narrative officially, Moussan and all the other people involved in this decided to take the bodies out of Peru temporarily, so they can study them in Mexico, so they can know what they are. And all those studies are already concluded like a few months ago. So the plan is to take them back to Peru. They don't want to keep them in Mexico, because there's a lot of people asking about the legality of this. Because if there are mummies that were human ones, they belong to the people of Peru, and it's a crime against humanity to take them out.
Right.
That is true, but they didn't do it that way. They didn't do anything illegally.
I'm so confused with this whole story. It's one of those. It goes back, and I know I feel I say this on every episode, that I'm kind of like a broken record, but it's like, I just feel that if majority of people knew about this story, right? It's like, hey, we have someone that will be able to, I always use the old George Carlin joke, where somewhere in the world is the world's worst doctor. Process of elimination, right? Well, the same goes for somewhere is the best forensics or best person that could be studying these bodies. Somewhere that person is out there. And we aren't calling that person. And I know they have some of the best that are working on it. I'm not saying that, but like the best, whether it's 1 or 20, if there's an opportunity, if there's a possibility that this is something else, even if it's not otherworldly, even if it is another species, why isn't everyone on this? That's where I think a lot of people will scratch their heads and go, well, they're not taking it that seriously because everybody's not on it. Why aren't they putting everybody on this?
I think this has to do with the issue of breaking paradigms, because as I told you, there are a lot of institutions that don't want to break their cycles. And this includes academia, this includes the scientific community. We know that scientists are mostly driven by grants.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that plays a lot into all of this. And I think that also the apparatus of academia, especially in America, is so wealthy and so strong, and it's so interconnected with so many institutions that are even related to big pharma, the media, that it's really difficult to accept something as this so quickly, And I go back to Galileo, when he was the one who told us that the truth about the universe in general, what we know today,
Mm-hmm.
that took a long time, and even his life.
Right.
So
Right.
these paradigm shifts are not easy, man. It's hard.
Yeah. Well, we'll see, man. And I know that you have been keeping up with it. You're talking about it often. People can check that out. A lot of the updates on your channel, right?
Yeah. I have another 2 interviews coming tomorrow and Friday with another 2 people who are directly involved with this, which is what I'm doing. Just the people that have put their hands on the bodies, that have studied them, that the first ones, that's what I'm doing. And I'm doing it dubbed and in Spanish.
Well, thank you, Pavel. I appreciate it, as always, for the insight.
Thank you, Kristian. Have a good one, man.
You too. All right. Thanks to Pavel. Now, and I always put a link for Pavel's channel in the description. So if you want to go check out those videos, you should do that. Yeah, I've told Pavel, I tell you guys, I still don't really know what to make of all of this. I really don't yet. I agree with Pavel that it's like, I think it should be studied. I think they should figure out what it is. I think that if there's even one sliver of a doubt that they're not fake, if that's not fake, that's a body. Well, what is it? You know what I mean? Like, what is it? If that many people are saying, no, this is something, and Gary Nolan, the data is interesting. Other people, the data is interesting. Let's figure it out more. Then figure it out. What the hell is it? If it all adds up to it, does this all lead up to this 2027 stuff of all this different information that's playing out there? I don't know, but it's possible. Anyway, that's all we got for you today. And I'm very curious to hear everybody's thoughts. The idea that Jamie Moussan is meeting with Tim Burchett, what's that mean? What does all of this mean? Where do you stand on this? Is it just hard to fathom that anything about this could be real? Or is it like, no, maybe it is. Maybe it's maybe it's a species we didn't know about that lived on the earth years ago, and we finally found these bodies. We want, they found dinosaur bones one day and said this was a species that lived here once. How do we know that that's not another thing that happened? We don't necessarily know that they're alien. Who knows? Maybe they figure out, oh, this is something they just kind of evolved from this. Who knows? If it turns out it's real. And it seems like a lot of people are starting to think that it is. That's all I can say. All right, hit the button, subscribe to the channel. Trying to get to 30,000. Like to get your thoughts on it, so make sure you hit that button. I'm changing these walls again. The stuff, the pictures are going to stay the same, but we're gonna paint them. Why do you need to know that? You don't, but it's a thought that came into my mind, and I figured I'd let you know, and now you do. So we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.